Theo. Walker wiped sweat from his brow as the evening sun cast long shadows across his wheat fields. At 28, he'd inherited the family farm after his parents moved to Arizona for his father's health. The isolation of rural Nebraska suited him fine most days, but tonight something felt different in the air, charged like before a storm, though the sky remained clear. A streak of light tore across the darkening sky, trailing fire and smoke. Theo squinted, tracking its trajectory as it vanished behind the tree line marking his eastern property. The impact shook the ground beneath his boots. "What the hell?" he muttered, grabbing his flashlight from the tractor. Common sense said to call the authorities, but curiosity pushed him forward as twilight deepened around him. The path through his eastern woodlot was familiar, even in the growing darkness. The smell hit him first, hot metal and something alien like cinnamon and ozone mixed together. Then he saw it. A sleek, silver craft had carved a furrow into the earth, steam rising from its hull as it cooled. As Theo approached, a section of the craft's side slid open. He raised his flashlight, revealing a figure stumbling out, humanoid but clearly not human. She collapsed at the edge of the smoking crater. Dropping his caution, Theo scrambled down to her. Under the flashlight beam, he saw her clearly, slender, with skin like pale blue porcelain and hair the color of polished silver. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, contained swirling galaxies of violet and indigo. Blood the color of sapphires seeped from a wound in her side. "Please," she whispered, her voice melodic yet strained. "Help me." To his shock, she spoke perfect English, though with an accent that seemed to fluctuate between syllables, as if her mouth was learning the language as she spoke. "You're hurt," Theo said, stating the obvious. "I should call." "No," she clutched his arm with surprising strength. "No authorities, they'll find me." Her eyes darted to the sky. "They're coming, I need shelter just until I can repair my ship." Theo hesitated. Harboring an alien fugitive wasn't exactly what he'd planned for his Tuesday evening. "Who's coming?" "Assassins, my father's men." Pain crossed her features. Was Princess Alara of the Australian Empire, and I am worth more dead than alive to them now." Theo's mind reeled. An alien princess, assassins, an empire beyond the stars. It was too much to process. "Please," she said again, "I can pay you." "With what? I'm guessing you don't carry dollars," he said, attempting humor to mask his uncertainty. Her expression shifted to something solemn. "With something far more valuable, a bond, my life essence intertwined with yours, it is the most precious gift my people can give." "I don't understand," Theo admitted. "You don't need to," she whispered. "Just know that it is not given lightly and that it will protect you as much as it will protect me." Later, Theo would wonder what madness possessed him in that moment. Perhaps it was her desperation. Perhaps it was the adventure she represented after years of mundane routine. Or perhaps it was simply that he couldn't bear to leave anyone, human or otherwise, bleeding and afraid in the dark. "My farmhouse is about half a mile from here," he said finally. "Can you walk?" Relief flooded her alien features. "Yes, and once we are safe, I will give you your payment." He helped her stand, supporting her weight against his side. As they made their slow progress through the darkening woods, Theo couldn't shake the feeling that his ordinary life had just ended, and something extraordinary had begun. "This payment," he asked as they approached the lights of his farmhouse, "what exactly does it involve?" Alara looked up at him, starlight reflecting in her galaxy eyes. "It means that from this moment forward, neither of us will ever truly be alone again." As they crossed the threshold of his home, Theo had no idea just how prophetic and wonderful those words would prove to be. 3 days had passed since Theo brought Alara to his farmhouse. The first night had been a blur of activity, cleaning her wound, which seemed to heal faster than any human injury would, and setting up the guest bedroom. When she'd finally rested, Alara had pressed her palm against his, a gentle blue glow emanating from the contact point. "The bond is initiated," she'd whispered before falling into an exhausted sleep. At first, Theo felt nothing unusual, just the unsettling awareness that an alien princess was recovering under his roof. But on the morning of the second day, he woke with a strange feeling in his chest, like a warm current flowing through him. He knew, without understanding how, that Alara was awake and exploring his kitchen. Now, as dawn broke on the fourth day, Theo found himself staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. Had his eyes always contained those tiny flecks of violet? It's the first visible sign, Alara said from the doorway, making him jump. Jesus, I didn't hear you, Theo said, heart racing. You did, though, she countered, leaning against the doorframe. Her wound seemed completely healed, and she'd borrowed one of his flannel shirts, which hung like a dress on her slender frame. You heard me with something other than your ears. She was right, he realized. He'd sensed her approach, registered her presence before she spoke, just as he now sensed her hunger, her curiosity, her attraction. The feeling disappeared as quickly as it had surfaced, and Alara's cheeks darkened to a deeper blue. You can feel what I feel, she confirmed, answering his unspoken question. And it will become more controlled with time. This bond, Theo began, struggling to process. What exactly did you do to us? Alara's expression grew serious. Among my people, it is called the Kelvarai, the soul bridge. It is typically reserved for those who choose to be life partners. She hesitated. It was the only payment valuable enough to offer a stranger who might save my life. Life partners like marriage, Theo felt dizzy. Similar but more profound, she explained. Physical distance will no longer separate our consciousness. We can share thoughts, feelings, even skills with practice. Theo gripped the sink. And you didn't think to explain this before. Would you have believed me? She challenged. Would you have agreed? He wanted to be angry, but through their connection, he sensed her genuine remorse mixed with desperate necessity. He sighed. Probably not. Later, as they shared breakfast, Theo noticed how gracefully Alara moved, how quickly she'd adapted to his world. She'd repaired her translator device, which explained her perfect English, and had begun teaching him phrases in her native tongue. Why did they come after you? He asked finally, pushing his plate aside. These assassins. Alara's face darkened. I discovered something I wasn't meant to know. My father, the Emperor, has formed an alliance with a race called the Vex. They possess technology that can harness the energy of entire stars and the minds of sentient beings. Mind control. On a galactic scale, she confirmed. I tried to warn the Council, but my father's influence runs deep. They called me a traitor, stripped my title, and sentenced me to death. Theo felt a chill. And these assassins, they can track you here. Eventually, my ship's cloaking system was damaged in the escape. Her eyes met his. I'm sorry for bringing this danger to your door. A wave of protectiveness surged through Theo, surprising him with its intensity. Was it his own feeling or something the bond had created? I'll help you repair your ship, he offered. Their hands met across the table, and that now familiar warmth flowed between them. This time, Theo didn't pull away. Instead, he watched in fascination as faint blue lines appeared momentarily on his skin where they touched, like luminescent veins connecting them. That night, as storms rolled across the Nebraska plains, the bond took an unexpected turn. Theo woke gasping, his body burning with unfamiliar desire. In the next room, he knew Alara was equally awake, equally affected. She appeared in his doorway, silver hair loose around her shoulders, eyes luminous in the darkness. The bond, she whispered, it seeks completion. What does that mean? Theo asked, though part of him already knew. Alara moved to his bedside, her movements fluid as water. Among my people, the physical union finalizes the bond, but we are not obligated. Theo reached for her hand, surprised by his own certainty. Is this what you want, not because of the bond, but because of us? Her answer came not in words, but in feelings, desire, affection, and something deeper blooming between them. She sat beside him, the mattress dipping under her slight weight. I've never been with a human, she said softly. Theo smiled, and I've never been with an alien princess. Their laughter broke the tension, but only for a moment. As the storm raged outside, they explored each other with tender curiosity. Where their skin met, that blue luminescence appeared, tracing patterns between them. Each touch echoed through their bond, creating a feedback loop of sensation that transcended ordinary intimacy. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, Theo felt the bond solidify into something permanent and profound. He could sense Alara's thoughts now, not just her emotions, fragmented images of her homeworld, memories of flight, and growing affection for him. What happens now? He asked, tracing the delicate patterns on her skin, markings he hadn't noticed before, revealed only in the aftermath of their union. Now, Alara said, her voice both in his ears and in his mind, we prepare, because they are coming, Theo, And when they find us, neither of us will be the same as we were before. Outside, the storm began to subside, but Theo knew a greater one was gathering on the horizon. A week after Alara's arrival, Theo woke with a jolt, heart hammering against his ribs. Beside him, Alara sat upright, her galaxy eyes wide and alert. "They're here," she whispered. Theo didn't question how she knew. Through their bond, he felt it too, a distant malevolence, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon of their shared consciousness. "How many?" he asked, already pulling on his jeans. "2 hunters, elite shadows." Alara slipped from the bed, moving with preternatural grace. "They've landed beyond the eastern ridge." The same place her ship had crashed. In the past week, they'd made 3 trips to the vessel, salvaging what they could. The cloaking device was beyond repair, but Alara had managed to send a heavily encrypted transmission to someone she would only refer to as an ally. Now, as she dressed in the clothes they'd modified for her more slender frame, Thea felt a wave of fear through their bond, not for herself, but for him. "I should never have involved you," she said, echoing her thoughts. Theo crossed to her, placing his hands on her shoulders. "I made my choice." He brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. "We made our choice." The intimacy they'd shared over the past days had transformed their bond into something neither of them fully understood. Thea sometimes caught glimpses of her world through her memories, towering crystal spires, twin moons hanging low in a lavender sky, ceremonies conducted under ancient trees with luminescent leaves. In turn, she'd experienced his memories of growing up on the farm, the loss of his mother to cancer, his dreams of someday seeing the world beyond Nebraska. Now, as danger approached, a new aspect of their bond emerged. Theo could sense not just Alara's thoughts and feelings, but her knowledge, combat training ingrained since childhood, diplomatic strategies, even the rudiments of her people's technology. "We need to move," she said urgently. "The shadows can track the bond's energy signature." The root cellar, Theo decided. It's lined with old lead pipes, might mask the signature. They gathered essentials quickly: water, food, the small energy weapon Alara had salvaged from her ship. As they slipped out the back door into the pre-dawn darkness, Theo felt a shift in their pursuers' presence. They were moving faster now, having picked up the trail. The root cellar was a relic from the farm's earliest days, dug into a hillside 50 yards from the house. Theo led the way with a flashlight, helping Alara down the earthen steps. Once inside, he pulled the heavy door shut, sealing them in cool darkness save for the beam of light. "Will this work?" he asked, setting the flashlight upright to create ambient illumination. Alara closed her eyes, concentrating. "It's dampening the signal but not eliminating it. We have perhaps an hour before they pinpoint us." In the confined space, with danger approaching, Theo was acutely aware of her presence. The soft sound of her breathing, the faint luminescence of her skin, the complex emotions flowing through their bond. Fear, determination, and beneath it all, a profound affection that continued to deepen. "Tell me what we're facing," he said, taking her hand. "No more half-truths. If I'm going to die for you, I deserve to know everything." Alara's eyes flashed with determination. "You're not going to die," she squeezed his hand. "But you're right, you deserve the full truth." She explained how her father, Emperor Terk, had ruled the Australian Empire with calculated cruelty for centuries. How she, as his only child, had been groomed to continue his legacy. How she discovered his plan to use the Vex technology not just for conquest, but for something far darker, the complete subjugation of consciousness itself. "The Vex device doesn't just control minds," she said, voice dropping to a whisper. "It harvests them, billions of souls converted to pure energy to power their fleet. My father plans to sacrifice entire worlds." "Including Earth?" Theo asked, though he already knew the answer. Alara nodded grimly. "Earth is resource-rich and isolated enough that its disappearance wouldn't immediately alert other galactic powers." Theo absorbed this, the magnitude of the threat momentarily overwhelming him. Through their bond, Alara sent waves of reassurance. "My ally, his name is Kaiden, commands a resistance movement. If he received my transmission, help will come." She hesitated. "But I don't know if it will be in time." Above them, a faint sound, metal against metal. The hunters had reached the farmhouse. "They're searching the house," Alara whispered. "They'll find our trail soon." In the dim light, her eyes met his. "Thea, felt a surge of something powerful through their bond, not just fear or determination, but something deeper. Without words, she moved closer, pressing her body against his. "If these are our final moments," she whispered, "I want to spend them connected to you in every way possible." Their lips met, and the bond between them flared like a supernova. Every sensation intensified, the softness of her skin, the racing of their hearts, the mounting desire. The blue luminescence appeared wherever they touched, growing brighter as clothing was discarded. This time was different from before. As their bodies joined, Theo felt their minds merging completely, boundaries dissolving. He was himself and he was Alara. He knew her as she knew herself, every memory, every hope, every fear laid bare. In this perfect union, something unexpected happened. A new power awakened between them, resonating through the bond. Alara gasped, breaking their kiss. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Theo nodded, unable to articulate what was happening. It was as if their bond had created something greater than the sum of its parts, a shield and a weapon all at once. Outside, footsteps approached the cellar. The hunters had found their trail. "They're coming," Theo said, but without fear now. They dressed quickly, standing together in the center of the small space. Through their bond, knowledge flowed, how to stand, how to focus their shared energy, how to prepare for the fight to come. "Whatever happens," Alara said, her voice steady, "know that what we share is rare even among my people. In all my centuries, I have never known a connection like this." Theo smiled, a calm certainty settling over him. "Then let's show your father's assassins what happens when they threaten a princess and a farmer who are bound by something stronger than fear." The cellar door began to creak open, letting in the first rays of dawn. Light flooded the cellar as the door swung fully open. Theo and Alara stood together, her small hand gripping his with surprising strength. Through their bond, a singular purpose flowed between them, along with something else, power, raw and untamed. The two figures silhouetted against the dawn sky were unmistakably not human. Tall and lithe, they wore sleek armor that seemed to absorb the light around them. Their faces were concealed behind visors that reflected Theo and Alara back at themselves. "Princess Alara of House Astral," one spoke, voice metallic through some translation device. "By decree of Emperor Terk, you are sentenced to death for treason against the Empire." The second hunter tilted its head, studying Theo. "The human is bonded to her, unexpected." "Kill them both," the first ordered, raising a weapon that hummed with energy. What happened next occurred so quickly Theo could barely process it. Acting on instinct, or perhaps on Alara's combat knowledge flowing through their bond, he pulled her aside as energy sizzled through the space where they'd stood. The blast hit the far wall, disintegrating the ancient shelving. Alara moved with liquid grace, the small energy pistol from her ship already in hand. She fired 3 precise shots. The first 2 were deflected by the hunter's armor, but the third caught the lead shadow in the joint of its shoulder, causing it to stagger back. "Run," Theo shouted, grabbing a preserved jar from a shelf and hurling it at the second hunter. The glass shattered against its visor, momentarily blinding it. They scrambled up the cellar steps into the breaking dawn. The farm stretched before them, bathed in golden light that belied the danger at their heels. Through their bond, they made a wordless decision. The crashed ship was their only hope. They ran, weaving through the cornfield, stalks whipping against them. Behind them, the hunters recovered quickly, their longer legs eating the distance. "We won't make it," Alara gasped, her breath coming in short bursts. "They're too fast." Theo glanced back, seeing the shadows closing in, their armor glinting between the rows of corn. An idea formed in his mind, clear enough that Alara caught it through their bond. "Yes," she agreed immediately. "Do it." Theo veered left toward the old irrigation shed. Inside, tanks of fertilizer and fuel for the tractor were stored. He grabbed a canister, unscrewing the cap as they burst out the other side. "Keep going," he called to Alara, who continued toward the tree line. As he ran, Theo splashed the fuel behind him, creating a zigzagging trail through the dry stalks. The hunters emerged from the corn just as he reached the tree line. One raised its weapon, but Theo was faster. He struck a match from his pocket and tossed it onto the fuel trail. Fire erupted with a whoosh, racing along the path he'd created. The hunters hesitated as flames spread rapidly through the dry field, creating a wall of fire between them. "It won't hold them long," Ilara said as they plunged into the woods. But it gives us time. They reached the crash site 15 minutes later, both gasping for breath. The silver ship lay where they'd left it, half buried in disturbed earth. Ilara immediately went to a panel near what must be the engine, her fingers dancing over symbols Theo couldn't comprehend. "What are you doing?" he asked, keeping watch for their pursuers. "Overriding the security protocols," she explained. "If I can access the main database, I can prove what my father is planning." "I thought the ship was too damaged to fly." "It is," she confirmed. "But its data cores are intact. I encrypted evidence there, transmissions between my father and the Vex, schematics of the consciousness harvester, coordinates of targeted worlds." The panel slid open, revealing a crystal that pulsed with inner light. Ilara placed her palm against it, and information began scrolling across its surface in a language Theo couldn't read. But through their bond, he understood fragments. What he saw chilled him to the bone. Earth wasn't just on the list of worlds to be harvested, it was first. The Vex device was already being positioned in orbit around Jupiter, hidden from Earth's detection systems. In less than a month, it would be ready. "Billions," he whispered, "all those people." "Not just their lives," Ilara said grimly. "Their essence, their souls, if you will, converted to energy to fuel my father's ambitions." Her hand trembled against the crystal. "And I would have been part of it if I hadn't discovered the truth." Through their bond, Theo felt her anguish, her guilt at being born to such a lineage. Without thinking, he wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her head. "You chose differently," he reminded her. "You risked everything to warn others." She leaned back against him, drawing strength from their connection. The transmission to Kaiden included coordinates to Earth, but without this evidence, the Resistance might not risk confronting my father directly. A sound from the woods alerted them. The hunters had broken through the fire barrier. They were close. Ilara worked faster, copying the data onto a smaller crystal. "This contains everything, if we can get it to Kaiden's people." "You mean when we get it to them?" Theo corrected, squeezing her shoulders. She turned in his arms, her galaxy eyes searching his. "Theo, you need to understand what you're committing to. If we survive this, if we succeed in reaching the Resistance, you'll be leaving Earth behind, perhaps forever." The enormity of that statement hit him. His farm, his life here, everything he'd known, gone. Yet when he examined his feelings, he found the decision had already been made. Their bond had transformed him. The thought of separation from Ilara was more painful than leaving his world behind. Through their connection, she felt his decision form. Her eyes widened. "You would do this for me, for us." "For us," he confirmed. "And for Earth, someone has to stand against your father." Their lips met in a kiss that sealed their pact. Through their bond, their emotions mingled, fear, determination, and something deeper that neither had fully named yet, though both felt it growing. The moment was shattered by a blast of energy that struck the ship's hull inches from them. They turned to see the hunters emerging from the tree line, weapons raised. "This ends now, traitor," one called. Ilara clutched the data crystal in one hand, Theo's hand in the other. Through their bond, that strange power they'd felt in the cellar surged again, stronger now. "Focus," Ilara whispered. "Our bond is more than emotional or physical. Among my people, the Kelverai can become a weapon when both partners are perfectly aligned." Theo didn't fully understand, but he trusted her. He closed his eyes, concentrating on their connection, feeling it pulse between them. The blue luminescence appeared along their joined hands, spreading up their arms. As the hunters fired again, something extraordinary happened. A shield of blue energy manifested before them, absorbing the blasts. The hunters paused, clearly surprised. "Impossible," one hissed. "The human shouldn't be capable." "It's not just me," Ilara said, her voice ringing with newfound strength. "It's us." The power built between them, crackling along their skin. Theo felt it gathering, waiting to be directed. Through their bond, Ilara showed him how, not with words but with intuition, with the ancient knowledge of her people. Together they pushed. A wave of blue energy erupted from them, slamming into the hunters with such force that they were thrown backward, their armor cracking under the impact. They lay still, whether unconscious or dead, Theo couldn't tell. Ilara sagged against him, exhausted by the effort. "We need to go," she said weakly. "Others will come." In the distance, a new sound reached them, the whine of engines, but different from Ilara's ship. Through their bond, he felt her recognition, then hope. "Kaiden," she breathed, "he received my transmission." A craft appeared above the trees, sleeker than Alara's but bearing similar markings. It hovered, then began to descend into the clearing. "Your ally?" Theo asked. Alara nodded, relief washing through her. "The Resistance. We've been given a chance, Theo." She looked up at him, her expression solemn yet hopeful. "A chance to save your world and mine." As the ship landed and its doors opened, Theo took one last look at the farm visible through the trees, the only home he'd ever known. Then he turned toward the stars, Alara's hand firmly in his, the data crystal clutched between them like a promise. The fate of worlds now rested in their bonded hands. The Resistance ship hummed with energy as it broke through Earth's atmosphere. Theo watched through a viewport as his planet receded, a blue marble suspended in velvet darkness. His hand remained intertwined with Alara's, their bond a constant stream of reassurance flowing between them. "It's beautiful," Alara said, sensing his bittersweet emotions. "I understand now why you hesitated to leave." "I didn't hesitate about you," Theo replied, turning from the view to meet her galaxy eyes. "Never about you." The ship's interior was populated by a dozen beings, some resembling Alara with their luminescent skin and otherworldly grace, others entirely foreign to Theo's understanding of life. Through their bond, Alara provided context for each species, their histories and alliances briefly flickering through his consciousness. Kaiden, the Resistance leader, approached them. He was of Alara's species but older, with deep blue skin etched with silver markings that denoted his status. His eyes, when they settled on their joined hands, widened slightly. "A completed Kelveri with a human," he remarked in a language Theo somehow understood through Alara. "The histories mention such possibilities, but I never expected to witness it." "The bond saved us," Alara explained, presenting the data crystal. "And this will save countless worlds if we can act quickly enough." Kaiden accepted the crystal reverently. "We're already en route to the Resistance headquarters on Loris. Your evidence will be analyzed there." His gaze shifted to Theo. "The human's presence may complicate matters. The Council is traditional." Alara's hand tightened around Theo's. "He stays with me. The bond cannot be severed now, even if we wished it." Through their connection, Theo felt her fierce protectiveness. Besides, he manifested abilities no outsider should possess. The Council will want to understand that. Kaiden conceded with a nod, though his expression remained troubled. "Rest, then. We have 14 cycles before reaching Loris." In the private quarters assigned to them, Theo finally expressed the questions that had been building since their escape. "These abilities, the shield, the energy wave, is that normal for your people's bonding?" Alara shook her head, silver hair cascading over her shoulders. "No, the Kelveri typically allows emotional and mental connection, sometimes minor transference of abilities. What we did," she trailed off, searching for words, "it's unprecedented." Through their bond, Theo sensed her own confusion and wonder. "Theories?" he prompted. "Only one," she admitted, moving closer to him on the sleeping platform. "The ancient texts speak of star-crossed bonds, rare connections that transcend ordinary limitations. Bonds between species were considered impossible until now, but perhaps. Perhaps they're not just possible, but powerful," Theo finished, understanding flowing between them. Her fingers traced the faint blue lines that had become permanent on his skin where their bond was strongest, around his wrists, across his chest over his heart. His own fingers mapped similar markings on her. "Whatever the reason," she whispered, "I am grateful for it and for you." Their bodies came together again, the familiarity of their union now enhanced by the certainty of their commitment. In the zero gravity of their quarters, their intimacy took on new dimensions, weightless, boundless, transcendent. The blue energy of their bond illuminated the darkened room, their shared pleasure amplified through their connection until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Afterward, floating in peaceful communion, Alara shared memories of her childhood in the crystal palaces of Australia, of the mother she'd lost young, of her gradual disillusionment with her father's rule. In turn, Theo offered his simpler history, summers in the cornfields, winters by the fireplace, dreams of adventure that had manifested in ways he could never have imagined. "No regrets?" she asked, a flutter of insecurity passing through their bond. Theo pulled her closer, pressing his lips to her forehead. Only that we didn't have more time on Earth. I would have liked to show you the ocean." "Perhaps someday," she murmured, though they both felt the unlikelihood of that possibility. The 14 cycles passed quickly, filled with preparation. Theo absorbed as much knowledge as he could through Alara and the ship's information systems. The politics of the Galactic Alliance, the technology that would soon become his daily reality, the history of the resistance against Emperor Terk's expansionist policies. All of it filtered through his mind, overwhelming yet essential. When they reached Loris, a verdant moon orbiting a gas giant, the resistance headquarters revealed itself, a complex built into a mountain range, shielded from detection by technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. The council chamber was imposing, 13 representatives from different worlds, seated in a semicircle on elevated platforms. Alara, still considered royalty despite her exile, was granted the right to present her evidence directly. Thea stood beside her, their bond humming with shared determination. The data crystal revealed the full scope of Emperor Terk's plans. Recordings of secret meetings, technical specifications for the consciousness harvester, lists of targeted worlds. The evidence was damning and comprehensive. As the final projection faded, silence filled the chamber. "This testimony cannot be ignored," the head counselor finally stated. "But confronting the Emperor directly will mean war." "War is already coming," Alara countered. "My father simply planned to ensure you couldn't fight back." Debate erupted among the council members. Some advocated immediate action, others urged caution and further investigation. Throughout it all, Theo remained silent, observing through the dual perspective of an outsider and through Alara, someone with intimate knowledge of these proceedings. The deliberations were interrupted by an alarm that blared throughout the complex. A communications officer burst into the chamber. "Imperial ships have entered the system," he announced breathlessly. "They've bypassed our outer defenses." "Impossible," Kaiden growled, "unless—" "We were tracked," Alara realized, horror dawning. Through their bond, Theo felt her rapid calculations. "Not through the ship, through us." All eyes turned to them. "The bond," the head counselor said, understanding. "It has a unique energy signature. The shadows must have analyzed it after your encounter." "They followed its resonance across space," Alara confirmed, guilt flooding their connection. Kaiden's expression hardened. "We evacuate now." Chaos ensued as the headquarters mobilized for emergency departure. Through viewscreens, Theo witnessed Imperial battleships emerging from hyperspace, massive, predatory vessels designed to inspire terror. "We'll never outrun them all," someone said despairingly. Amid the panic, a calm certainty settled over Theo. Through their bond, Alara sensed his resolution before he spoke it aloud. "We can stop them," he said, his voice cutting through the din. "Or at least slow them down." Alara's eyes met his, understanding flowing between them. The bond energy. "If they can track it, they're attuned to it," Theo reasoned, "which means they might be vulnerable to it." "What you're suggesting would require channeling power on a scale that could kill you both," Kaiden objected. "Not if we use the amplification chambers," Alara countered. "They were designed to boost communication signals." "But could be reconfigured to enhance bioenergetic fields," the head counselor finished, interest kindling. Within minutes, the plan took shape. While the resistance prepared for evacuation, Theo and Alara were led to a spherical chamber at the heart of the complex. Crystal arrays lined the walls, designed to capture and amplify energy. "Once we begin," Alara warned as technicians made final adjustments, "we cannot stop until it's complete. The strain will be considerable." Theo took both her hands in his, their foreheads touching. "Together," he said simply. The technicians withdrew, sealing the chamber. Alone in the crystalline sphere, they stood facing each other, hands clasped between them. Through their bond, they aligned their breathing, their heartbeats, their very consciousness. "Focus on the bond," Alara instructed. "On what we are together, not separately." The blue energy began to manifest, stronger than ever before. It flowed from their joined hands, spreading to envelop them entirely. The crystal arrays responded, capturing the energy and reflecting it back, amplified and purified. Pain lanced through them as the power built beyond anything they'd experienced. Theo gritted his teeth against it, drawing strength from Alara's unwavering presence in his mind. Images flashed between them. His farm at sunrise, her childhood gardens, the first moment they'd seen each other, their bodies intertwined in passion and commitment. Now, Alara gasped when the energy reached its peak, directed outward to the ships. Together, they visualized the Imperial fleet, using the complex's sensors to target their locations precisely. With a shared mental push, they released the accumulated power, not as a weapon, but as a massive pulse of the same energy that constituted their bond. The effect was immediate and stunning. On the monitoring screens visible through the crystal walls, they watched as Imperial ships faltered, their systems overwhelmed by the unfamiliar energy signature. Some drifted aimlessly, others initiated emergency protocols, weapons systems going offline. "It's working," Theo managed through the pain. But the strain was proving too much. As the pulse continued to emanate from them, Theo felt something tearing within their bond, not breaking it but stretching it beyond its limits. Through their connection, he sensed Alara's life force flagging. Without hesitation, he made a choice. Drawing on everything he'd learned about the Kelviri, he directed his own life energy into her, shielding her from the worst effects of the backlash. "Theo, no," she cried, feeling what he was doing. "I love you," he said, speaking the words aloud for the first time, though the feeling had been flowing between them since the beginning. "Earth, Australia, the stars themselves, none of it matters without you." The chamber filled with blinding blue light as the final surge of energy pulsed outward. Then darkness claimed him. Theo awoke to the sensation of tears falling on his face. He opened his eyes to find Alara leaning over him, her galaxy eyes swimming with emotion. "You stupid, brave human," she whispered, relief and anger mingling in her voice and through their bond. "You nearly died." He reached up weakly to touch her face. "But I didn't, and neither did you." They were in a medical bay of some kind, monitors tracking vital signs Theo couldn't interpret. Beyond the transparent walls, he glimpsed stars streaming past. They were in hyperspace. "The evacuation?" he asked. "Successful," she confirmed. Our energy pulse disabled the Imperial fleet long enough for every resistance ship to escape." Pride flowed through their bond. "The Council has declared my father an enemy of all free worlds. The evidence we provided has been transmitted across the galaxy. The Resistance is now an alliance, gathering forces to oppose him openly." "And Earth? A contingent has been dispatched to disable the harvester near Jupiter," she said. "Your world is safe, at least for now." Theo closed his eyes briefly, relief washing through him. When he opened them again, he found Alara studying him intently. "Our bond has changed," she said softly. "What you did in the chamber, diverting your life force to protect mine, it's altered the Kelviri's fundamental structure." Through their connection, Theo sensed the difference immediately. Where before their bond had been a bridge between separate minds, now it felt more like a shared space, a melding that transcended ordinary boundaries. He could access her knowledge more fully, sense her presence even more clearly. "Is that bad?" he asked. A smile bloomed across her face. "Bad. It's unprecedented. The Council's xenobiologists are fascinated. Apparently we've pioneered an entirely new form of bonding." Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. "They're calling it the Astral Bridge. Already other species are exploring its possibilities for deeper cooperation and understanding." Theo laughed weakly. "So we accidentally created an interspecies revolution while saving the galaxy." "It seems we did." Her expression grew serious. "But the fight isn't over. My father will regroup. The coming conflict may span years." "Then we'll face it together," Theo said without hesitation. "Princess and farmer against an empire." "Former princess," she corrected, "and former farmer." "What are we now, then?" Alara's smile returned, warmer and more intimate. Through their enhanced bond, he felt her certainty, her devotion, her love, named now acknowledged in full. "We are the beginning of something new," she said, leaning down to kiss him. "Something neither of our worlds has seen before." As their lips met, their bond pulsed between them, blue energy dancing across their skin. Outside the viewports, stars streaked past, each a potential battlefield, a possible sanctuary, a future waiting to be shaped by hands joined across the vastness of space and difference. Princess and farmer, alien and human, together defying stars and empires with the most powerful force in any galaxy, a bond that transcended every boundary it encountered. As they journeyed into that uncertain future, one thing remained constant. Whatever came next, they would face it as neither fully human nor fully Australian, but as something gloriously, powerfully new. Together,